Hello everyone, Benair here with another Legends of Runeterra champion reveal, and we got it right. We saw the Shamans yesterday, so it is Udyr coming out for the Frail today. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight into this trailer and see what he does. I'm expecting transform mechanics is what I'm hoping for.
Gather, spirits, gather. Spirits!
Alright, Udyr is a 5-mana 4/4. When I am summoned or strike, create a stance swap in hand, or if you have one, reduce its cost to 0. You've damaged the enemy nexus 7 times this game. That level up condition is ridiculously easy to do. If you turn 1 summon an Omen Hawk swing, that's 1 damage. If you, let's see here. If you Ember Maiden, every time Ember Maiden triggers, that's a point of damage. Every time you Overwhelm through, that's a point damage. Impact, I believe, is a second form of damage. That's an incredibly easy level up condition. Let's go ahead and move on, though, and see what the stance swap is, because other than the fact he has a easy level up condition, he's very low statted for 5 mana.
Of the land, hear my call!
Hear my call!
We will show them where their spells can help.
For me, the spirits dance.
Oh yeah, and the new 3/2
We follow the old ways.
Grant a stance to an ally? Oh. Bear stance, Wild Claw stance, Boar stance, Ram stance. Deal 1 to everything else. Grant an ally 2 health and regeneration. Grant an ally 2 attack and overwhelm, or just +2/+2. Okay.
Fire ram!
Oh yeah, because of Scar Grounds. Yeah.
Breaker, you should have fought beside Sejuani's. Iron Boar! Old gods, hear me!
Your allies +1, then deal 1 to everything. Okay. Oh!
The spirits gather!
Very nice. Alright, 5 mana, 5/5. Udyr Frail. When I'm summoned or strike, create a stance swap in hand, or if you have one, reduce this cost to 0. That's the same. I have +1/+1 for each stance you've cast this game? Okay. I did not catch which how much the stances are without them being reduced to 0, but that's still really good.
I see the beast inside, Shaman. Unleash it!
For Sejuani, for the Winter's Claw!
Stand and fight!
This is our path. Miss Claw!
And just big overwhelm damage. Sejuani's leveled up already because synergize.
The gods have spoken.
And they call it there. Alright. That's very, very interesting. And the ending was a little quick, but I do have to say that I think this might be my favorite level of animation so far.
The spirits gather!
Like, I wish, like right there.
The spirits gather!
That is a amazing shot right there. I just wish the animation would hold it a little longer so you could really take in what you're seeing. But it instantly cuts. But it's still good. Still really good. Alright. Let's go ahead and thumbs up the video, and then let's head over to... Alright, so we got a lot of cards to look at, so let's go ahead and start with Udyr, and we'll work our way down from there, seeing how he's probably going to be the thing that ties this archetype together. And I say archetype, but from what I saw so far, it seems to be Beat Stick the archetype, but we'll see. Alright, so as we talked about, Udyr is when I'm summoned or strike, create a stance swap in hand, or if you have one, reduce its cost to 0. That effect is the same on level 1 and level 2. He levels up when you've dealt 7 plus damage to the Nexus 7 times, which is not a hard level up condition. How unreasonable would it be to say that? Alright, turn 1, you Omen Hawk into attack. It's 1. Turn 2, your opponent's turn, you drop down the Tusk Speaker. That's 2. Turn 3 begins. You throw down a Tusk Speaker again. That's 3. Throw down another 1-drop. That's 4. And you open attack. 1, 2, 3. So it's possible to get this level up condition on turn 3 if your opponent is having a slow start. But that's not very reasonable. But you can already get 3 to 4 procs off, even with your opponent playing on curve, by turn 3. And if you get 4 by turn 3, it's very possible that by the time you attack on turn 5 when you play your Udyr, it's entirely possible to have him leveled up. So super easy level up condition in the Frail Yord, in Mono Frail Yord even. So no problems there. And yeah, and let's take a look at this Stance Swap. Stance Swap is a 3-mana slow speed spell. It has no mana symbol, so you can't run this unless you're running Udyr, or it has to be generated. So it's 3 mana at slow speed. And when Udyr strikes a second time, it reduces the cost to 0. 3 mana, and let's take a real look at that. 3 mana for one of these effects. So we've looked at Udyr. Udyr's level up is he gets +1/+1 for each stance you've cast this game. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Udyr's great, but his stances are really what matter. And the stances are Bear Stance, Boar Stance, Ram Stance, and Wild Claw Stance. So, how good are each of these individually? For 3 mana, you get to pick one of these. And it's give an ally just +2/+2 for 3 mana is slightly understat. This cost is slightly overcosted, I think, for a grant +2/+2. But it is generated off effectively a free card, though, so I don't think that it's bad. And sometimes you do want +2/+2, but the other ones that grant keywords I think are better, like the Boar Stance, which gives you +2 health and regeneration, with Scar Grounds, giving +2 health and regeneration is really good, especially on your Udyr. Keep him alive, keep him healthy. The Ram Stance seems like an enabler. You definitely take it if you have your Scar Grounds on the field, but if you don't, it's hard. Oh, the only time you do this if your opponent's going wide with a bunch of low health units, you can take Ram Stance as well. But other than that, this is probably, without Scar Grounds, this is the weakest stance, I feel. But with Scar Grounds, it's one of the strongest, so it all just situational. And with Wild Claw Stance, you get +2 attack and Overwhelm. All of these stances are really good, and Stance Swap itself, all the cards that create Stance Swap are going to be great. I like these a lot. They're amazing in the fact that they're flexible. And that should be a really obvious thing, but I say it all the time, flexibility is king. It's why Friendship is such a great card, not because it has any one busted stat. It's why Three Sisters is such a commonly run card, because it gives you options, and options win games. I'm telling you, like, 3 mana slow speed, permanently give Overwhelm and +2 attack is exactly what a lot of the Scarground archetype needed. Also, by the way, because a lot of the Scar Mother, and not the Scar Mother, but the oh, what is it? The 0/3 that gets +3 attack every time she survives damage. Giving her Overwhelm in the Freljord is just such a big thing, because oddly enough, a lot of units naturally have Overwhelm, but there's not a lot of ways in the Freljord region to actually give Overwhelm other than, what is it? Pack Mentality, I think. The +2/+2 and Overwhelm to everything for 7 or whatever. Other than that card, there's not a lot of ways to give Overwhelm. So having this 3 mana grant Overwhelm and it's repeatable to use is just great. I think that stance swap is amazing. The options are great. Regeneration is great for your big unit like Udyr that you want to keep alive as you're constantly dealing damage to yourself. Bear Stance is just a good standalone one. Ram Stance triggers Scarground all the time, and Wild Claw is your finisher. I've raved about Stance Swap enough. Let's move on. It's a great card. It'll be really great. Then we have Spirits Unleash, which is also Udyr's Spirit Unleash, so this is his champion spell. Grant your allies +1/+1, then deal 1 to everything for 5 mana. Grant your allies +1/+1 first, so they won't die even if they're at 1 HP. Then deal 1 to everything. With Scargrounds, this card really shines because it's +2/+1 and give tough to anything that doesn't already have tough. And if they had tough already, it's just +2/+1 and you don't even take the damage. So this card is great when Scargrounds is on the field. Again, very similar to the Ram Stance, but when Scargrounds is on the field, it's an okay card. It's overpriced for 5, but I like it all the same because you're going to be run. This is a Scargrounds deck. You want to get your Scargrounds out ASAP, keep it alive, and it will do amazing things. And the bottom line is, I don't think you main deck this, but because it's Udyr's champion spell, it's good. Because if you draw an extra copy of Udyr, it becomes this. Sometimes you might need it, and it gives you the option, which is really good. So, Spirits Unleashed seems like a really good card, but only as a champ spell, regrettably. I just don't see main decking this card in the Scargrounds deck. Next card we got is Hara All Seer, a 6 mana 5/5. When I'm summoned, create a stance swap in hand. It costs 0 this round. Okay. 6 mana for a 5/5 is understated, especially for the Freljord. But it creates a 0 cost stance swap in hand. And unlike Darkness, it doesn't have the... I was comparing this to Darkness because if you already have a Darkness in hand, you can't get multiples of them. But this one doesn't say if you already have one, reduce its cost by hand. No, it just creates a... If you already have a stance swap in hand, it creates a second one that costs 0. So this is a 6 mana 5/5 that gives you 3 mana worth of value because it gives you a free stance swap. So, and you can use it, yeah, it takes an action, but you could think of this unit as a 6 mana 7/5 Overwhelm with the Wild Claw stance, or a 6 mana 7/5 Overwhelm, or a 6 mana 5/7 Regenerator, or a 6 mana 7/7. So that's great. This card is really good. Because they stack in hand, I actually see this card being ran. As a 3/of possibly, I'd have to mess around with the deck because I do think Udyr Sejuani is definitely the way to go, which makes sense because of lore reasons as well. I like that they do that, but I'd have to think about this card some more. If I would run it as a 3/of, but on its own in a vacuum, it's great. You're taking like 1 less attack and health, making it a 5/5. But you're getting an extra 3 mana worth of value. If this was a 6 mana 6/6, it would be a little too overstated, so I get why it's a 5/5. Because you can immediately buff it with the stance change you get. It just takes another action. So, it's really not... In total, this is 8 mana worth of value. Because if you look at the stats, this is a 5 mana cost creature worth of stats, but it gives you 3 mana for free. So even though it costs 6, it's really 8 mana worth of value, so it does net you positive value at the end of the day, which is good. I just have to play around with the deck and to see what deck I'd run it and how many I'd run. But first impressions of the All Seer is it's good. It gives you net positive value, nothing to complain about. Next up is the Vulpine Wanderer, a 2-mana 2/2. When I'm summoned, create a stance swap in hand. 2-mana 2/2 that creates a stance swap. This seems really good, specifically because Udyr will reduce its cost to 0 when you play him. So even if turn 2 you create... Alright, so turn 2 you play the Vulpine Wanderer. What happens if you have two... next turn you play another one, so you have 2 stance changes in hand. Because again, unlike Darkness, you can stack stance swaps in your hand. Udyr, when I'm summoned, will okay, so yeah, that's actually perfect, because what you can do is, because Udyr's on summon or strike, turn 2 you can play the Vulpine Wanderer. Say turn 4 you play another one. Let's just say you play 2, right? So you have 2 stance changes in hand. Turn 5 begins. You throw down Udyr. One of them goes to being 3 mana to 0. You go ahead and slap it onto Udyr and give him 2 extra health and regenerator. That way he'll survive the attack. He attacks, hits, and he reduces the cost of the second one in your hand to 0. So yeah, I see this coming together really nice. It's nice that they have these more low costing stance swap generators. It's really good. You're probably gonna run a 3 of Vulpine Wanderer just because stance swap is a good card, and it's just a good mainstay. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't. This is good. It's slightly understated though, but it does have 2 health, so once again it'll survive the Scar Grounds dealing damage to everything effect, which is all you could ask for. So good card. We'll see how it all comes together. Next card we got is Shamans Call, a 6-mana burst speed. Create 2 fleeting 0-cost stance swaps in hand, which is net positive value. It's at burst speed. You pay 6 to get 2 3-mana cards that cost 0 this turn. You just have to use them both this turn. This actually I see being a very useful card as a finisher. Their stance swap is slow speed, but it does allow you to so it does take, this will take 2 actions to really get going, but being able to for 6 mana give 2 creatures +0/+2 in regenerator, or specifically what I'm thinking of with this card is late game giving 2 of your creatures +2 in overwhelm as a finisher. Your Udyr, and every stance swap you cast also busts your Udyr +1/+1. Yeah, this is a great card. Shaman's Call is great. We've already gone over stance change, so getting 2 of those in hand for free, on top of whatever else you have, is just good. And our last reveal for today is Wrath of the Frail, which is a 8-mana 8/8 overwhelm. Enemies with 3 or less power can't block. Enemies with 3 or less power can't block. So it gives all your allies super fearsome. Instead of you have to have 3 or more power to block, it's 3 or less can't block. So that's really good. It's a cutoff really that a lot of good cards are considered to have 3 power at least. I don't know how often like that'll be a make or break for you late game on turn 8, but a lot of like go wide decks will only have 3 power on field. So it situational. It just gives you guys super fearsome. An 8-mana overwhelm, an 8-mana 8/8 overwhelm that has slightly better fearsome, gives slightly better fearsome to all of your allies effectively, is good. Is it the finisher I would run? I'd have to think about it, because it does seem really nice, but I'm also kind of wondering, like, in this package specifically, in the Udyr package, would I run this when I could just run 2 more Shamans Calls and buff my units? I could see it as a 1 or 2 as a finisher. Because you're not going to have a lot of creatures dying, so they who endure would not be your finisher late game. So at 8 mana, 8/8 Overwhelm, yeah, I could see it. I could see it possibly. But we'll have to play around with this deck to see more. But that's what we got for today, the Udyr package. My thoughts on it so far? I think that this package was kind of, how do I put it? It was designed with Sejuani in mind. That because a lot of these cards are good not just for Udyr, but they're good for Sejuani just because the deal damage every turn kind of strategy, the consistently you want to be doing damage every turn is really good because it also makes it where your Sejuani will be leveled up once she comes down. And I see this really as, I could see you running this as just a mono Frail deck with Udyr and Sejuani, because Sejuani and Gangplank were always ran together for the longest time just because they had the exact same level up condition, and Bilgewater gave you a lot of the direct damage effects you needed, like Warning Shot and Parlay and whatnot. So I see why Sejuani was ran with Gangplank. I think it was the correct thing to do. But with Frail getting all of these direct damage effects with this patch, I just don't think you have to run in Bilgewater for Sejuani anymore. I think Udyr Sejuani will be totally viable. But that's an obvious shell, right? Like that's obvious. Udyr is put into Sejuani, and what else can we do with this? What else can this direct damage effect go to? Other things that come to mind is a Swain deck again. I've always liked running Freljord Noxus with Swain because of the avalanche and whatnot. All the deal 1 to everything effects can be very good. Not only that, but giving not only Swain, by dealing 1 to everything, it triggers Swain's stun effect very easily, and it levels him up very easily. But I could honestly see this as like the Scargrounds Vladimir deck that was running around for a little bit. I could honestly see running Udyr in that deck, so you can give your Vladimir Overwhelm as well, and just buff his HP. See, because Vladimir already has regeneration when he levels up, so you could just use Bear Stance to make him +2/+2. You can deal 1 to everything, which buffs your units. Run the Crimson cards to generate more Crimson cards in hand by dealing damage to him. I could see that. I think your 2 main decks are going to be Udyr with Sejuani, which will be more of a beat stick mid-range, deck where you're just trying to beat down your opponent as quickly as possible with bigger, chunkier units like Udyr, Sejuani, the All Seer and whatnot, and Scargrounds just giving permanent buffs. Or you can run Udyr with Vladimir, which is a more, it's not as beat sticky, but it's more of Ping City. I'm going to slowly drain you by getting chip damage in and outvaluing you as my units get their survive damage effects over and over again, generating more units for my hand and pinging you for 1. Lots of cards that can do that. All in all, I really like Udyr. He's not doing, I was kind of hoping, if I'm being honest, that they were going to do something wild with him where once he leveled up, he had some mechanic that let you, like, transform him into 1 of 4 different forms. So you could put him into, I was hoping he could transform into Bear Stance, and you can meet a condition to transform him into Boar Stance, Ram Stance, and Wild Claw Stance. But that does not appear to be the case, so we'll just have to make do with it. The other thing I'm kind of noticing is the thing that I'm going to be really interested in is kind of for a different game, though, to be honest, that Udyr is getting a rework in League of Legends right now, and they're redesigning his character. Originally, the original stance that Udyr had in League of Legends was the bear stance, tiger stance, turtle stance, and phoenix stance. We're seeing here, though, that he has bear stance, boar stance, ram stance, and wild claw stance. And the reason I find this interesting is because in his rework, what he's doing is, instead of drawing from spirit animals, he's drawing from the, if I have my lore correct here, they are saying that he's going to draw his power from the guardian deities of the Frail, which is the Volibear, Ornn, Anivia, and some boar, and I can't remember its name, but there's boar. And while we have the bear stance for Volibear, the boar stance for the boar god, which I just can't remember its name, the ram stance for Ornn, the wild claw stance I find interesting because I thought it was going to be the phoenix stance still, with Anivia as the cryo phoenix being what he draws from that spirit. But so I'm curious if they're going to keep it like this, because, and I guess he doesn't have to draw specifically from them, because if you look in his full art, you can see that there are birds and owls and a variety of different animals, so I guess it's not too bad. I'm just curious on if this is going to be the design that they stick with in League of Legends as well. Just two different games. I'm just wondering if the aesthetics are going to stay the same, and I'm sorry to ramble about that point. But all in all, the stance changes I think are going to be really good if you're running Udyr. Like, 3 mana for these effects aren't bad, but you're really going to see the value down when Udyr starts discounting them to 0. So I think generating a lot of them with the Vulpine Wanderer is going to be great. But I think, if I'm being honest, that if you want to run stance swap outside of an Udyr shell, you should exclusively use Shamans Call for a late game buff with them. Use Shamans Call, make them go up, get 2 of them for free, effectively, and use this as a big buff spell in your 2 big units. But yeah, if you're not using Shamans Call, if you're not using Udyr, stick to Shamans Call. But besides that, I think the shell looks great. I'm definitely going to experiment around specifically with Udyr Sejuani, Udyr Vladimir, Udyr Swain are the 3 big ones that come to mind. But we'll have to wait and see as the more cards are released with the expansion, because we still have 1 more release, I believe, at least. And we'll see how it goes after that. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave a comment down below for deck ideas you'd like to see me build and play. I'd be more than interested to build them for when the new set comes out. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow.